I made a video on infinite loops that cause illegal game states, and with this video I'll cover infinite loops that are totally legal in Yu-Gi-Oh! And can win you the game. In this list we'll try to cover 10 cards which cause infinite loops in legal game states, if not completely legal with the ban list. A lot of these cards are going to be banned cards. And today's video is proudly sponsored by Skillshare. More information at the end of this video. And at number 10, we have Flintlock. Now, this card is able to cause an infinite loop with another copy of itself, and Flint. Flintlock has the effect where it can move the equipped spell card Flint to any other monster on the field, and not once per turn. It does have a once per turn effect of moving Flint to itself, though. So if you move Flint to another copy of Flintlock, the other Flintlock can just move it back to the original Flintlock, and they can just both keep on moving Flint between each other infinitely. And this movement counts as the equipping an equip card, so if you have morale boosts out on the field, you'll gain 1,000 life points every time you move Flint. And you can gain an infinite amount of life points during your turn with this combo. Or, if you combine it with Fire Princess, who inflicts 500 points of damage every time you gain life points, you can OTK your opponent with this infinite life point gain loop. The loop itself requires 3 cards, infinitely gaining life points requires 4 cards, and actually being able to OTK your opponent requires 5 cards. So it's not the most consistent infinite loop in the world, and that's why it's only at number 10. Number 9, Primal Seed. This card allows you to infinitely recycle one removed from play card. Primal Seed has the effect where you can only activate it if you have Blackluster Soldier, Envy of the Beginning, or Chaos Emperor Dragon, Envoy of the End on the field. You can add 2 removed from play cards to your hand. So in order to set up the loop, you need to get BLS on the field, a card that banishes all cards like Macrocosmos or Banisher of the Radiance, and have 2 copies of Primal Seed in your hand, plus the card you want to loop. In the example in the video, I'm using Tremendous Fire in order to OTK my opponent. So I just use Tremendous Fire to inflict 500 points of damage to my opponent, then Tremendous Fire will be banished due to Radiance's effect. And then I use Primal Seed to recover Tremendous Fire, and then use it again. And then I use my second Primal Seed to recover Tremendous Fire and the first copy of Primal Seed. Then I can just use Tremendous Fire, and then Primal Seed to recover Tremendous Fire and Primal Seed. And you can just do this as many times as you want. With this loop, you can technically recycle any card, so you can also give your monsters infinite attack if you recycle an attack boosting spell card. It's just Tremendous Fire was the quickest way to OTK my opponent for this video. In order to set up this loop, you need 4 cards. 1 specific card on the field, 2 specific spell cards in your hand, and a way to banish all cards, which makes this loop not at all consistent, and that's why it's only at number 9. Number 8, Red Eye's Flare Metal Dragon. This card has the effect where each time your opponent activates an effect, you immediately inflict 500 damage. One of the more popular ways to use this card in a practical duel is if your opponent brings out Beals on their side of the field. Beals has the effect where it gains attack equal to the damage you take. So if your opponent has Beals out and they activate any effect while you have Flare Metal Dragon, it'll start an infinite loop that will kill your opponent. As Beals will gain 500 attack, which will cause Flare Metal Dragon to inflict 500 damage, which will then cause Beals to gain 500 attack, and then Flare Metal Dragon will then inflict 500 damage, and it will just repeat until your opponent loses. Now, there is a way to force an infinite loop with a Red Eye's Flare Metal Dragon without relying on your opponent having Beals, or giving your opponent a Beals. If you give your opponent a Gelen Duo with the effect of Summon Sorceress, and you have Red Eye's Flare Metal Dragon on your side of the field, you can wait for your opponent to activate an effect, which will then cause Flare Metal Dragon to inflict 500 damage. Gelen Duo has the effect where if you take damage, this card is destroyed, but its effect will be negated on your opponent due to Summon Sorceress's effect, so it won't actually destroy itself, but Flare Metal Dragon will chain to its effect trying to go off and inflict 500 damage, which will then cause its effect to try to go off again, but will be negated and will stay on the field, and then Flare Metal Dragon will inflict 500 more damage. So with this combo, a much easier to pull off combo since Summon Sorceress can give it to your opponent straight from your deck, and is easy to bring out, you can cause an infinite loop to OTK your opponent. Number 7, Colossal Fighter. Colossal Fighter is a synchro monster who has the effect where If it's destroyed by battle, you can special summon a warrior type monster from your graveyard. Colossal Fighter himself is a warrior type monster, and can target itself. Now, in order to cause the infinite loop, you need to have rainbow life, and your opponent needs to have a monster with a higher attack than Colossal Fighter, which can be accomplished by giving your opponent a kaiju. Colossal Fighter then can just attack into the higher attack monster and destroy itself, and then bring itself back, and then you'll gain life points equal to the damage he took due to Rainbow Life's effect, and you can just repeat this as many times per turn as you want, allowing you to gain an infinite amount of life points. And because this combo is so easy to set up, you just need one trap card and a way to bring out Colossal Fighter, and for your opponent to have a stronger monster, which you can just give them. It's actually kind of a problem for some sanctioned events, to the point where Rainbow Life is routinely banned for the World Championship tournaments. It used to be, you could OTK with this loop if you were to equip Armory Arm to one of your opponent's monsters and attack into it. Armory Arm inflicts damage to your opponent equal to the attack of the monster destroyed by the monster this card is equipped to, which works if you equip it to one of your opponent's monsters and then attack into it. But they created a special ruling that states the monster must be in the graveyard for the effect to apply. And since Colossal Fighter special summon itself after being destroyed, the damage never actually takes effect. So in order for this combo to work, you need 2 copies of Colossal Fighter, which is a lot more difficult to pull off. Number 6. Manticore of Darkness. This card has been involved in a lot of loops in the past, but I'm only going to mention 2 of them for this video. Manticore has the effect where if it's sent to the graveyard, you can send a beast, beast warrior, or wing beast type monster you control or in your hand to the graveyard to special summon this card from the graveyard during the end phase. Since this card itself is a beast warrior type monster, and its effect is not once per turn, if you manage to get 1 Manticore in the graveyard and 1 in your hand, you can infinitely special summon 1 Manticore by sending the other one to the graveyard. Now, in order to OTK with this card, you can combine it with Archfiend Eater and Backfire. Archfiend Eater has the effect where during the end phase, you can destroy 1 monster you control to special summon this card, and not once per turn. Backfire has the effect to inflict 500 damage to your opponent every time a fire type monster is destroyed. So, if you have Archfiend Eater in the graveyard and Manticore on the field with Backfire, during the end phase, Archfiend Eater can destroy Manticore to bring itself out, which will cause Backfire to inflict 500 damage to your opponent, and then Manticore can send Eater to the graveyard to bring itself out. And then Eater can activate its effect, since it's still the end phase, to destroy Manticore and bring itself back out. And this can happen an infinite amount of times, which can OTK your opponent with the Backfire's damage. This combo requires 3 cards to set up, so it's not that inconsistent. More recently, when Zodiacs were at full power, if your opponent activated a Max C, you could use the Zodiacs to search out 2 copies of Manticore, since they were Beast Warrior type monsters. And if you could just send 1 to the graveyard, you could infinitely special summon them during your end phase to cause your opponent to draw every card in their deck. And since Max C was a pretty good counter to Zodiacs, some people were signing in 2 Manticores of Darkness in order to deck out their opponents who used Max C. Number 5. Knight Assailant. This card has 2 effects. First effect is unimportant for this loop. Its second effect is, whenever this card is sent from your hand to the graveyard, you can add another flip monster from your graveyard to your hand. Since Knight Assailant himself is a flip monster, you can add a second copy of it from your graveyard to your hand. So with 2 Knight Assailants, you have infinite discard fodder, as one can just add the other one back to your hand if discarded. If combined with a card like Snipe Hunter, whose effect is to discard a card to potentially destroy 1 card on the field as many times per turn as you want, you could infinitely clear out your opponent's board. And that's why Knight Assailant is limited. This is one of those cards on the list who's broken with multiple copies of it in your deck, but is completely fine if there's only allowed 1 copy in your deck. Number 4. Firewall Dragon. Now this card has 2 effects. I'm only going to talk about its second effect though. Its second effect is if a card this card points to goes to the graveyard, you can special summon a monster from your hand, and this effect is not once per turn. So, if combined with a card like a Assault Core, whose effect is that if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add another Union monster from your graveyard to your hand, and a card like Toon Cannon Soldier, who allows you to tribute a monster to inflict 500 damage to your opponent, as long as you have 1 other monster in your hand, You can infinitely cycle between 2 Assault Cores, recycling themselves, and then being special summoned with Firewall Dragon. And because of this, Assault Core got limited so it couldn't loop itself, kinda like why Knight Assailant was limited. But then when Firewall Dragon got banned, they put Assault Core back to unlimited, since it was only really a problem as long as Firewall Dragon existed. Unlike Knight Assailant, who was useful in much more situations. The thing with Firewall though, is it could allow other infinite loops and not just with Assault Core. And that's why this card got banned. He was too easy to bring out and caused too many infinite loops, which could be done on your first turn to win. And as the most recent card on this list to come out, this goes to show you that they are not at all afraid of still printing cards which cause infinite loops, and they have definitely not learned their lessons from all these other past cards. Number 3, Samsara Lotus. This card can be used in a whole bunch of different infinite loops, but for this video, I'm going to use a more gimmicky one. Samsara Lotus has the effect where, during the end phase, if you control no spell and traps, you can special summon this card, and this effect is not once per turn. So if you can infinitely destroy the card with a card like King Tiger Wangu, and have another card like Genix ally Baleflame, who gains a counter every time a card is destroyed, which increases attack by 100, and inflicts 300 damage to your opponent for every counter it has if it's destroyed by battle. You can gain an infinite amount of stacks with Samsara Lotus and King Tiger Wangu, infinitely destroying and reviving itself. This is not really the best combo in the world, and there are other ways to abuse this effect, and in more practical ways, but I think this one is funny. Samsara Lotus is currently banned for some consistent loop it was used in, but it can also be used in this gimmicky one I just showed in this video. Number 2, Ultimate Offering. This card has the effect where you can pay 500 life points to normal summon an additional time, and this effect is not once per turn. Now, there are many ways to infinite loop with this effect, but the one I'm going to show in this video is a little simple. What you can do is summon Athena to the field, have Ultimate Offering up, and use it to normal summon Honest from your hand, which will activate Athena's first effect to inflict 600 damage to your opponent since a Fairy-type monster was summoned. Then you can use Honest's effect to send himself back to your hand. Then use Ultimate Offering to pay 500 life points to normal summon it, which will activate Athena's effect to do damage again, and then you can just activate Honest to send it back to your hand. Since you're doing 600 damage every time this interaction takes place, while only paying 500, if you started out with even life points, you can OTK your opponent with this loop. But since you do have to pay 500 life points every time you use Ultimate Offering, it's not really an infinite loop since you can run out of life points. That is, unless you use the Mysterious Puppeteer, who has the effect to gain 500 life points every time a monster is normal summoned, which then allows Ultimate Offering to enter infinite loop territory. Ultimate Offering is an incredibly strong card even outside of this loop, and that's why this card is banned. And at number 1, Butterfly Dagger Elma, a card basically on the ban list because of how easy it causes infinite loops. Elma has the effect to increase the attack of the monster it's equipped to by 300. Its second effect is, if sent to the graveyard while equipped, you can just return it to your hand. So if used on a card like Gearfree the Iron Knight, who has the effect to destroy any equipped card equipped to it, you can infinitely activate Butterfly Dagger Elma, have it destroyed and sent to the graveyard, and then return it to your hand. And if this is combined with a spell counter card, like Royal Magical Library, you can create an infinite amount of spell counters, which can allow you to draw through your entire deck in one turn. Now, there's actually a lot of ways to use Butterfly Dagger Elma's ability to infinitely recycle itself in other infinite loops, and other ways besides just Gearfree the Iron Knight, and that's why this card is banned. Being able to return to the hand with no cost after being destroyed on the field is too powerful, and no other card in the game has a similar effect, without some kind of heavy restriction, or at least a once per turn clause. You'll notice that pretty much all of these effects in this video are viable only because they don't have once per turn clauses. Like Treeborn Frog used to be used how Samsara Lotus is used, until it got a text change to change its effect to once per turn. So really, they could fix pretty much all of these cards by just adding a once per turn to the card. And they do occasionally go back and do just that, like they did with Treeborn Frog. And today's video was sponsored by Skillshare. Now, I've already been using this website for like the past year on and off, give or take, So when they came to me with a sponsorship opportunity, I was more than happy to do it because I've actually used and paid for the service myself. If you've ever noticed little openings to these videos or the red lines that signify a number for the top 10 number, those are all done in After Effects. And After Effects is a really complicated video creation tool. So whenever I need to learn something new, I would just go to Skillshare and look it up. Because it's so much easier than crawling through 10 different YouTube videos in which the person making the tutorial has no idea what they're talking about until you finally find one that has the correct information you're looking for. But with Skillshare videos, you basically know what you're going to get every time. And that's really the best use for it. And more recently, I went on there to look up how to create better thumbnails for the videos. I was surprised to find they even had tutorials for the most minute things related to YouTube, which was great, because there's almost no good information on YouTube about how to make good YouTube thumbnails. Surprisingly, especially since your thumbnails for your videos is sometimes more important than the video itself, in relation to how successful it will do. So if you'd like to give Skillshare a try, I'll have a link in the video description, which will give you a 2-month free trial, which is more than enough time to see if the website is worth it for yourself.